So, Mike, I'm not sure if I brought this story to your attention or not, but this came out about 2 weeks ago, going on 2 weeks ago. At Final Fantasy 16, according to Square Enix, apparently the RPG didn't meet the expectations of the publisher, and
hmm
they're blaming it on everything else instead of the obvious. So let's scroll down here and see what was actually said and who said it.
Okay.
Um, Executive Takahashi Kiryu revealed during the latest earnings call that Final Fantasy 16 did not meet. It failed to meet the expectations. Now, initially, Square Enix said that the game had performed well when it first came out, and they probably said that because they were trying to boost numbers, with a positive report. And
Right.
the game had sold, it had shipped 3 million units, which that's a decent start. But for a series that's been around for as long as Final Fantasy has, which is a few decades at this point, you should expect better.
hmm
And so Square Enix, their profit saw a 79% drop. Now
Oh wow.
and they're saying that due to the slow adoption of the PlayStation 5, this is why the game didn't meet expectations. And now, mind you, the PlayStation 5 is now pretty simple to find. You can easily like type in, like, go on to Amazon or Walmart or any major retailer and search up the PS5, and they're in stock now. It wasn't how it was for like the first two and a half years, with the system being out on the market. They're pretty easy to find now. Not to mention the PlayStation 5 has sold over 40 million units. There's an audience, out there.
Right.
So what do you think? What do you think about this? Because this isn't the first time that Square Enix has expressed, disappointment for one of their major AAA releases. They've been doing this since like the Tomb Raider reboot years ago.
Yeah, I don't think it's the case with the slow adoption of the PS5. Like you said, it's pretty easy to get it now. I think they've just kind of really alienated the original fan base, and the game is probably just not that good where it's gaining much of an audience to keep boosting sales like that.
I've been saying this for a long time, and it may seem like I pick on Square Enix all the time, but Square Enix is a perfect example of what's wrong with a lot of the major publishers within the gaming industry. It's like you can't alienate your fan base and then do a complete 360 and change the what made one of your flagship franchises popular in the first place by chasing a casual audience that never gave a shit about the series in question to begin with, and then expect positive results. And of course, I was reading. It's probably not up on here, but I was reading some of
Uh
the comments on other websites regarding this story, and a lot of fanboys were saying, "Oh, Square Enix, they're doing fine. They're not giving you all the information. They're only giving you a certain percentage." It's like, no, this is their report. I believe their stock fell a certain number as well. And it's not just because of Final Fantasy 16. They also had Forspoken that came out earlier this year, and that game completely bombed. So
yes.
yeah, so it's been, and then last year they released that live service game with Babylon's Fall, and that game died within 1 year of its release. It actually died within the first few months of its release. That game was so bad that it was named as like the worst game of the year, and they stopped printing copies for it, and they turned the servers off.
Sad.
I played the demo for that shit, and I couldn't believe how bad it was. And originally that game wasn't supposed to be like a live service game, but they turned it into a live service game, and I think that's what killed it. Square Enix, they've been releasing bad games for a while now. They also had Final Fantasy Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin, whatever the hell it was called. That game also underperformed. That was basically a weak Souls-like that no one wanted to play, except for like the most hardcore Final Fantasy fans from that audience. And then you also have to think, you have all these other RPG games that have came out this year and that are coming, that still have yet to be released. You had Diablo 4, which came out a few weeks before Final Fantasy 16, that a lot of people are still playing, which has a greater degree of content compared to Final Fantasy 16, and that's basically essentially a one of those live service games. So it has a lot more content than Final Fantasy 16 does. You have Baldur's Gate 3, which just came out, which I'm about to talk more about that in a minute. And then you also have Starfield that's still coming out. That comes out early September. I think September the 7th or some shit. In 10 days, I think on the 30th, those who've preloaded the game, you can preload it now if you've already bought it. If you bought the premium edition of the game, you'll have a few days early access. And, that's from Bethesda, the same people who brought us games like Fallout and Elder Scrolls. So, and that's their first major IP in over a decade. I think maybe in 20 years. But
Yeah.
yes, people aren't talking about Final Fantasy 16 anymore. It's not even in the conversation really for Game of the Year. It'll probably still get nominated, but again, it really doesn't mean anything. I mean, what do you think about like the fact that this game just like came and went and no one's really talking about it anymore?
Yeah, it just goes to show that they aren't really remaining relevant like the other publishers with games. It's kind of sad because they aren't really listening to their audience, and that's the main thing. It's just strange because with so many failures they've had, they still aren't listening, and that's the problem. You think they would by now, but they're like in their own world.
Well, yeah, that's been my biggest problem with Square Enix for the longest time is that they're not listening to the fan base anymore. When I say the fan base, I mean the core audience, the original audience. At this point, they fucked up so many times they probably don't even know what their audience is. Their core audience, and that's the sad part. But what's even sadder is that we have Baldur's Gate 3. I think I mentioned this game to you. I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3 yet. I do intend to try it out. Basically, it's an RPG game from Larian Studios, and I think they're a smaller studio. The funny thing about this is that it's now the highest. I guess well the Metascore did drop a point. It was a 97, but it was like the highest rated game this year, behind actually no over the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. But again, it dropped the point on Metacritic. It's still heavily critically acclaimed. And the funny thing about Baldur's Gate 3 is that it's actually a turn-based game. So to all the people who were saying, including the producer of Final Fantasy 16, that they're going for a younger audience, that turn-based is outdated, no one wants to play turn-based games anymore, blah blah blah. This game just proved all of you wrong.
You're right on that because there's people saying that this will probably be the game of the year if Starfield isn't.
Well, yeah, it's definitely going to be a game of the year contender. So this game pretty much came out of nowhere. I was like, this game was not on my radar at all. But once I started hearing more of what the reception was, I was like, yeah, I gotta try this at least. And I'm not a Dungeons and Dragons person. I've never played Dungeons and Dragons, but I have played plenty of turn-based games, and I would like to at least try this. And it's like one of those top-down, isometric games, but then they mix in like dialogue choices similar to like the Mass Effect series, and then they have like a AAA presentation with that, and they give you all sorts of different options. And it's a long game too. I believe Baldur's Gate 3 is like minimum if you just speed run the main story. I think it's like 70 hours, 75 hours or some shit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a short experience. But if just looking at the Metascore and then looking at the user score, they're pretty close together, and we don't see that a lot now. We don't always see reception like that. That this game and that publisher Larian Studios, they just proved Square Enix's theory wrong, and they really need to go back to what made the series popular. Stop making these action games that don't represent what Final Fantasy is all about. What it's supposed to be. Stop making games where there's only one playable character. Stop cutting all of the RPG mechanics out of these games. These are supposed to be RPG games. Stop having your producer go into interviews talking about how he's mad that their games are labeled JRPGs, like it's some kind of derogatory label. There was an interview like that. He didn't like the fact that their games are labeled as JRPGs. It's like all that simply means is that it's an RPG that was made in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Japanese RPG, Japanese role playing game. That's all that means. Why is that a big deal? It's fucking sad. Yeah, I'm really interested to see what the game of the year is going to be for this year. It's going to be between Baldur's Gate 3, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and Starfield. It's going to be between those three. I have a feeling, unless Starfield comes out and it just bombs, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I saw there's some leaks out there. I haven't read anything about them, but they're definitely out there now.
I read one account that person put like 10 hours into the game already, and they didn't experience any bugs or anything, so it's not like a typical Bethesda release where.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if that's true or if that's what the case is actually going to be, but I'll have to check and see. Apparently they're offering with Starfield, they're offering people for to be able to play the game through Game Pass, which is that's interesting, an interesting choice. Yeah, I'm likely just going to buy the full game, but I'm waiting for the reviews first because I don't want to end up wasting my money on some nonsense. So
I hear you on that.
yeah, but yeah, man, Square Enix, y'all need to get it together, man. This Final Fantasy 16 was not the game that everyone said it was going to be. Like it's not that return to form for Final Fantasy. In fact, it's one of the worst games in the entire series. It's one of the easiest games in the entire series. It's one of the worst games in the entire series when it comes to replayability. And yeah, the story sucks. The combat system is just a derivative of Devil May Cry, done worse than Devil May Cry does Devil May Cry. There's hardly any RPG elements in there, and yeah, it's just not an acceptable Final Fantasy title. Do what Larian Studios did. You have a perfect example. Do what Atlas has done with the Persona series. They have different examples at this point. Yeah,
Yeah, you're right. This game really came and went.
It really did. It really did. I can't believe you had people saying, "Oh, this game's going to be game of the year. This game's going to be game of the year." And what pissed me off is that they just. I'm surprised they didn't do this before the game release, but I'm going to pull it up and show you. Yeah, so they didn't release these before the game came out. They waited, and look at the price on some of these.
That's insane. $240 for that.
These figures they're barely any better as far as the quality goes than anything you would find at Walmart.
So it's overpriced for sure.
Yeah, and that's not the only one. They got a few more. These are all characters from the game. $130.
Nah, that ain't worth $130. That's insane.
$130. $130.
Dang, and these aren't coming till 2024.
Yeah, motherfuckers are batshit out of their goddamn mind.
Yeah, you gotta be insane.
Now, see, this is my point though. They worried about selling merchandise and shit, but then you wonder why your game ain't performing the way you want it to perform, and then
Wasting resources.
exactly wasting resources, and then we have studios that don't have anywhere near as much money as a company like Square Enix has, anywhere near as many resources, and they're pulling scores like this. I mean, something's wrong at that point, if you ask me. I mean, am I wrong?
Definitely not wrong on it.
Yeah. So yeah, Square Enix, y'all just need to get it together, man. It's done. Um, the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I'm not really too interested in it, but I may play that game. I'm not sure, but I'm not playing another entry in the Final Fantasy series, another mainline entry, if they keep going down this action route. The next game in Final Fantasy 17 is going to be like some MMO or some fucking ARPG nonsense, and there's only one playable character again, and it's just like a weak clone of some other action game, some other random action game, and it's not, turn based and all that. Y'all can get the fuck out of here with that. I'm not even going to waste my time with it, and neither should anybody else.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's the story, man. Now, as far as what I got going on the channel coming up, I got a retro, two retros that I'm working on now. One of the games I'm still playing. The other one I've completed. And then Armored Core 6 comes out this week. I'm definitely going to be playing that. And then hopefully I'm going to be playing Starfield. I have to see how that game turns out, but that's what I got on the slate right now. Just to make a few announcements, and all of that shit is in the works. It's in process.